Behind me is one of BMW's most raw, pure, car enthusiast focused vehicles that they've made in the last decade. This is my girlfriend's BMW E82 1 Series. You've seen it on the channel before, and while I am the caretaker of this vehicle, I have always maintained it as stock because, again, it's my girlfriend's car and I didn't want to modify it in a way that would make it less of a daily driver for her. So you can imagine my surprise when she told me she wanted a little bit more noise, better handling, better suspension, and in front of me is a slew of about $2,000 worth of mods, maintenance, and things that have just been needing to be done on the car, of which one of them is the all-revered M Performance exhaust. I'm really excited to have this put on the car. It is from a 135, so there is going to be a little bit of work needing to be done, and that's something we're going to go over in today's video. But aside from the exhaust, I've got things like O2 sensors, wheel spacers, floating center caps, a Euro version intake box, as well as Turner Motorsports silicone air intake, as well as a full refresh of the shocks and struts.
All right, so getting this job started, quite simple. Really, the only thing you're going to need outside of your typical sockets are a 22mm wrench as well as an O2 socket, power tools and ratchets, of course. In terms of specific sockets, I really just used an 8 and a 10mm for your typical fasteners. There is some E-Torx, those are E8 bolts. That's for the fixtures of the O2 brackets. So as long as you have an E-Torx and a 22mm, you'll be fine. Outside of that, the O2 sensors that you'll be needing are from Bosch. These are the ones that I purchased from FCP Euro. I have the part numbers here, and I will talk about later which ones go upstream versus downstream. So let's get straight into it. In order to get access to the O2 sensors behind the valve cover, we're going to need to get the cabin air filter shelf out of the way. Very, very simple. If you've done this for any jobs underneath, it's the same process every time. 6 8mm bolts gets out the filter housing. Once you've done that, we're going to take off the brake reservoir and the ECU cover on the sides, as well as disconnect the particulate sensor for the inside AC. After that, you're going to want to grab a pick to open up the tabs as well as the holding for the power cable that goes across the engine. Once those are out of the way, you can just pull the shelf up and out and then put that off to the side. After you've pulled off the beauty cover, you have access to the two O2 sensor pigtails right on top of the fuel rail. Take that pick again to press down the tab and then pull out the connectors. They're quite simple to take out, so just be careful not to break the harness when pulling out. It can be brittle with all the heat cycles. One quick note I'll add, if you have the N51 version like I do, you do have to remove the secondary air pump. Super easy. There's just a couple of nuts holding down the pump. And then there's this silver reservoir looking thing that I believe injects the secondary air back into the block. Just take off these two 10mm and you'll be right where we are here now. With that being said, you've got your 22mm O2 socket. I started with the rear one just because it was a little bit harder to get to. Use a couple extensions. 3/8 ratchet's going to be more than enough to break the torque. If you really want to, go for a half drive, but you can see here I'm not really struggling too much. Mostly just making sure you have everything in place.
Alrighty, so got the O2 sensors out, and if we take a quick look at the codes, We've got for both Catalyst 2, which I believe is Bank 2, quote unquote, we have two codes, 2CA7, which is lambda sensor heating before Catalyst 2 function, and then 2C3E, lambda probe before Catalyst 2, line fault. So we're at 100 something odd miles, 111,000 miles, so these are due anyways. There's also, it looks like a pinch in the wire there, but in any case, we've got the old ones out. Not looking too bad. See what I expected. Both of these are the Upstreams. Once you break the torque, you're able to spin these out pretty quickly. So with that, old one's out, new one's in.
First O2 sensor goes back in. This is the black or the darker gray wire that will tell you which connector goes in at the end. Moving to the second bank, this is the lighter gray wire. Again, a great way to tell which one goes where is obviously which one came out, but secondly, how long is the wire and which connector will they connect into. Same as the front, sort of twiddle it in, then we'll torque down to crush the copper washer. Now, once you've got the O2 sensors torqued, the routing of the cables is quite easy. Push them to the back of the block. There's the PCV hose connector. Route it underneath that, and then you'll have the fuel rail line up the excess wiring for you, and then you'll just connect it straight to the connectors. And lastly, for the top, as I mentioned, the lighter gray wire is for the second bank, or the one farther away from you from where I'm standing. The longer one, or the darker gray, will go to the connector closer, or the one more up front. So once you've gotten under the car and gotten the under tray out of the way, it's a good idea to get the connectors disconnected first. Gives you a little extra slack when you're pulling on the O2 sensors, and make sure that you don't rub them up against anything or accidentally get a tear.
Alrighty, so downstream O2 sensors are out. They look fine. Honestly, nothing really sticks out to me. But with that being said, again, you do them in pairs, and if you're in there, you might as well do both. This is bank 2, 4 through 6, because it's got the gray, and then this is bank 1 through 3, because it's got the black. But if you forget that as well, these are keyed with different colors for the O-rings. So you know the drill, old one's out, new one's in. Let's get to it. We'll do a test drive at the end to make sure everything works in tandem. The O2 sensors are in. Let's move to the suspension and get some befores of the stance of the car.
So just before we get started on getting the suspension out, this is what the car looks like. Camber, the fitment, ride height beforehand. You can see the car is riding pretty low, as well as the wheels pretty tucked in. So we're going to change that with some spacers. With that, let's get into the install starting from the rear. In order to get access to the top bolts of the rear suspension, we're going to have to take off some of the inner liners for the trunk. Very simple. If you are familiar with the E9X chassis, it's the same situation. Bunch of plastic tabs keeping in the liners. Take off the plastic trunk cover. Then you have two rubber grommets covering the shock towers. In order to get the shock out, we're going to move to the bottom of the car. We're going to start off with the 21mm bolt that holds the swing arm to the knuckle. After that, you have a 17mm nut holding the shock in. From this point, you'll want to get a jack to lift the swing arm so that you can get the 21mm bolt out the rest of the way. From this point, you'll want to go back to the top to remove the nut holding in the shock, and then you push down and pull out. Once the shock is out, you'll have two E10 bolts to remove, and you pull out the lower rubber shock. Then you push out on the arm and pull the spring out.
Alrighty, so if this was not clue enough that we had to replace this, now let's show you the shock itself to see how it compresses. So I'm gonna push it down. Are you kidding me, man? 111,000 miles. You see how slow that it's coming back up? My goodness. So anyways, that's the old one. While it is still rebounding, they are essentially the same. But let me show you what a proper strut should look like. So not only was compression harder to do, but so was rebound. I am very glad to be doing this now when it needs to be. If you are planning on doing this, whether you have an M Sport or not, you can put these in your car. Just make sure you have the proper springs to go with it. Alrighty, well, in order to understand what we are putting in, we should understand what we are taking out. So this is our original shock for the rear. And as you can see, a lot of this is what was on the inside of the car. So this was fine. We can see just how compressed and tired these components were. I mean, we literally don't even have a bump stop anymore. On top of that, take a look at the bottom. This is what the bottom of the shock actually pushes into. That rubber does not look great. I mean, this thing just came completely off. Here's our new one. You can see that the actual rubber inside is still intact versus here where it's starting to peel. And overall, just not happy, you know. So glad we're gonna be doing that as well. Starting with the new shock for the rear, we're gonna start with the uppermost shock mount. This is what isolates between the inside of the car. There are basically two components. This is what it looks like when you have them chassis right here, and these isolate between the vehicle. You can get polyurethane bushings that will reduce slop and play, but again, this is a daily vehicle. Foam and rubber is what I need. I do not want to sacrifice NVH and road comfort for the sake of handling. Then we've got the sealing grommet. Then you've got your supporting cup. And lastly, your bump stop, as you can see, completely intact. So This is pretty much all you need to do for the outside. I have this for the inside of the vehicle. Again, that goes on the inside, not before. You're not gonna be able to get this inside the car if this is on. New spring perch, lower pad, marked right here with the end of the spring. Same with the top, if you can see that right up in there. Ends right here. The car had the L2 facing upwards, so just put it in the same way it came out. If your suspension springs that you're replacing them with are different, follow the instructions of that.
Installation is going to be the reversal of removal. I started off with the spring to get it mounted in there. After the spring is in, I put the lower mount back in. 2 E10 bolts secures the bracket. I'm sure there's a torque spec here, but as long as it's good and tight, you'll be fine. Then I put in the shock and used the supplied 16mm nut this time. Once the shock is lined up, it's a good idea to get a couple threads going on the upper mount. Just need to get it tight enough until it starts spinning, and we'll do the counterhold to torque it down later. Once you've got the spring inside the arm, you'll want to use the jack to slowly lift it up and get the bolts lined up into the knuckle. It takes a little bit of finagling, so be patient, be careful, and use leverage where you can. Any sort of thicker pry bar or longer rod will help you line up the bolt itself. At this point, prior to torquing down the nut, you'll want to make sure that the jack lifts the vehicle just off the stand so that you know the car is at ride height. The torque spec for this bolt is 100 Newton meters or 73.7 foot-pounds. Lastly, I torqued the shock to the rubber mount at 38 Newton meters. And now that one corner is done, let's move to the other side and repeat. Alright, now getting started at the front, we're going to break the torque on the strut nuts. There are 3 on each tower. They're 13mm. You might have to switch between a socket and a wrench, as you can see here, if you don't want to take the strut brace off. From this point, getting under the vehicle, it's a good idea to break the torque on the control arms as well as the strut knuckle. Do this at ride height so that when you lower on the when you push the knuckle down, it doesn't put any excess tension on the bushings. All of these bolts are 18mm. You just need to break the torque and you'll be good to go. No need to take the bolt out. Onto the bolt that holds the strut to the knuckle. It is an 18mm bolt yet again. Once you've loosened it, there'll be a bracket that holds a couple of the sensors. You can just move that out of the way. Once the bracket's out of the way, moving up to the sway bar end link, you'll need a T30 counter hold with a 16mm ratcheting wrench. Afterwards, if you have a chisel or a knuckle spreader socket, put that into the knuckle to begin the separation. Now that everything is disconnected, time to go back up top to finally remove the 3 nuts holding the strut tower in. I moved to the driver's side so you could get a better look at what this looks like up close. Once these are off, it's as simple as just pushing down the knuckle and pulling out the strut. Be very, very careful not to rub it up against the fender because I just did a paint correction and I unfortunately scratched the car down to the paint and it really hurt my soul. As you can see here, Garrett and I are struggling a little bit. A little bit of penetrating oil or lubricant sprayed on the knuckle won't hurt at all. Just be sure you're not pulling on the brake lines too much, as a lot of stress might cause them to start to leak. Pretty minuscule detail here, but don't forget to remove the paper gasket, as that's going to be replaced when you put the new strut in as well.
All right, in front of me are the struts for the driver's side. Obviously, this is the old, this is the new. Taking off the spring and put it off to the side so I could show you a little bit of the makeup of the 1 Series suspension, as well as show you obviously when these components need replaced. So taking off all of these bits and bobs here, we've got the top hat, top mount, all that stuff, and we've got the actual body. I believe this is called a valve body. And this is basically what regulates your rebound as well as your compression. Now, obviously, this is a brand spanking new one. It's going to perform better. However, just to give you a frame of reference, let me show you what it's like to compress as well as the rebound of a brand new shock. So I'm going to push this on the ground. And that recovered pretty quick. So I don't know if that caught on camera, but that was really, really quick. With the old one, I'll just show you. Yeah, I mean, golly, these were absolutely needed. Just no rebound whatsoever. Compression was gone as well. It was super easy to push down, and I am very glad we are doing this now because we're at 111,000 miles and the car needed it. Alrighty, starting with the new parts, we're going to take the lower spring perch and line it up with the dot. Push it in there. There'll be another little indentation here that you can push in as well to line up. Then we're going to take the bump stop into the dust boot. You want to push right past this first lip. So best way I like to do it is just kind of push in like this on one side, and you're going to slowly work it in until it pops. Kind of, there you go. Then once you've got the bump stop on the dust boot, we're going to put this here just for a moment. We're going to take the upper spring plate with the rubber pad and we're going to line it up with the indentation. We want it all the way up there. Now it's going to get pushed in by the spring, but you get the idea. Then once you've gotten your spring in, it's probably easiest to push the dust boot through first. Then we've got the end of the spring going into the perch. So we're going to push that straight through. We're going to just slowly start to line it up because once we actually start to loosen it, it will go back in. Then we'll make some small adjustments as we need to make this a little bit taller. All right, once you have about 1.5 inches, that should be enough room. What we're going to do next is we're going to put on that washer, then the dust cover with the top hat, and then make sure you're all lined up. Give it just a little bit of a push down, slowly line it up, then grab your, for my case, 15 mil and your pass-through socket.
So unfortunately my camera died here. What I tried to finish up was with the torque specs. You'll grab your 19mm pass-through socket with your T30 counterhold, and you're going to torque down the strut nut for the top hat down to 60 Newton meters.
All right, once you've got your spring compressors off, you're gonna take the last little dust boot, slap them on the top. And that, folks, is 2 front struts. Let's get these back into the car.
Putting the strut back in is quite easy. There's an aligning pin that goes alongside the 3 strut tower bolts. Putting those nuts back on with the wrench just to get them hand tightened. On the back of the strut, there are 2 pins that go down the split of the knuckle. Line that up, and then using the force of the jack and the body, push the jack up and let it compress the strut upwards. After the aligning pins are far enough into the knuckle, you're going to realign the bracket that holds the ABS and the wear sensor, pushing through the 18mm bolt through the hole and tightening it down just to get it started. the car is at ride height, it's a good idea to torque down the control arms, tighten them down. Both are 18 millimeters as mentioned, and then grab your torque wrench and set it to 100 Newton meters or 74 foot-pounds. Since these are torque to yield bolts, if you are replacing them, you'll also add an additional 90 degrees. Moving upwards to the strut knuckle bolt, this is that other 18 millimeter, and it is torqued down to 82 Newton meters. If you are replacing it with a new bolt, an additional 90 degrees for torque to yield is applicable. Then continuing upwards, reinstall the sway bar end link with the brake line bracket holder. This nut gets torqued down to 65 Newton meters. Lastly, going back to the top, once the car is back to ride height, you'll want to torque down the strut tower nuts. These are torqued to 41 Newton meters. After admiring your work, with the power of editing, we do the same thing on the other side.
I went with Berger Motorsports spacers. I have them on my 4 Series. Really like them, so gonna continue using them here. Went with 15 millimeter rears and 12 millimeter fronts. So going to apply just a little bit of anti-seize on the hub for the outside as well as on the inside. And last but not least is floating center caps. One of my favorite little things to do on any car that I do. Just a very, very small touch. Also, these were just needing to be replaced. I mean, you can start to see the difference in the blue. It's starting to fade. They're 12 years old, so. All right, wheel going on. Then extended lug bolts for the spacers.
As the car is coming down, it needs to settle to correct ride height. Quick editor's note here, we decided to remove the front spacers as it was affecting the steering effort a little bit. We decided to keep the 15 in the rear, and it is looking much, much more flush.
All right, this is future Donnie talking now. We've done the install, and I wanted to show you exactly why it's easier to service and install the Euro airbox versus the American, and some of the benefits. I have the stock one right here, and as you can see, it being installed this way, where the filter is basically sandwiched in between here like a burger, you have to take out the whole thing just to get at the filter. It just adds an extra step when you're servicing this, you know, roughly every year. And so it just gets annoying. Whereas with the Euro airbox, you simply have to take out these 7 screws, take it up, and then pull out your filter. Much, much easier to service. And an added benefit is you actually get rid of the hydrocarbon air filter. A lot of times on the forums, you'll read a cheaper alternative is to just cut this out. It's super easy. You literally just, you know, shave this out, and then you basically heat off the rest of the glue that keeps this filter in. I would suggest doing it with a second airbox in case you mess up, but that does free up a little bit of extra airflow. Is it anything crazy? No, but neither is this. This is just an alternative if you don't want to buy the airbox. Lastly, if we take the air intake hose, you can see that there's this huge silencer down here. This is one of the main reasons that the car doesn't have as loud of an intake sound as it is a silencer. So it helps keep the sounds down, whereas for car enthusiasts, we want that extra noise. Additionally, this is slightly heavier than if you had the silicone air intake like I do now, but at the end of the day, it's just for noise, so that's why we did that as well. It's a cheap upgrade. So now that you've seen that the box is in the car, let me show you how to install it.
In order to remove the air intake, we're going to start by taking off this air funnel. There are 4 T20 screws that pull it into the intake. After that's removed, you have 2 10mm bolts that hold the air intake to some grommets. Once those are removed, use a 6mm socket or a flathead to loosen the clamp holding the air intake hose, as well as remove the MAF connector. Now, pushing the air intake hose away from the box, you should be able to pull the air intake up and out. You'll then need to loosen the same clamp on the air intake hose to remove that as well.
So we got the intake boot out of the car, and as you can see, it is quite large. But if we just look inside and look at the difference in the diameter, we can see that there's going to be a lot more air flowing through the new Turner silicone one. On top of that, it's a lot smoother, which allows for a lot easier flow of the actual air. It's for noise. We're losing a little bit of weight. This thing probably weighs 3/4 of a pound. This thing's like half. So installation is just as easy as taking it off. We've got new clamps, and then you're just going to line up this little tab back over on the throttle body. You're just gonna push it over. So here is the American airbox. This has a MAF on it, whereas the European one actually only had a intake air temperature sensor. So I've already taken it off. We're gonna put the new one on. Even though I don't have anything to clean it, we should be good. I have no error codes with my MAF, so we should be fine. Literally just 2 T25s. We'll take it off the old one, slap it on this new one. Very careful getting it out. There is an O-ring on here, so I don't want to mess with it too much. Pop it into the new one. Very careful with that sensor. Thread the new guys in. All right, MAF is back in. Let's get this in the car. Very, very quick clean in here. Hose going in first. Got the clamps already lined up where they were before, just like that. So I'm gonna push them all the way in. We wanna make sure we have a nice, good seal, just like that. Euro box going in. Clamps tightened down, hooking up the MAF sensor. This goes in on this side. All right, filter I think is in. Bolts to secure the airbox. All right, with the filter in, now we are going to put in the top of the box. And like mentioned, it is so much easier because literally all you have to do is fasten these up. So this is just gonna go on the outside of that. So I'm gonna do that at the same time. I'm gonna get it lined up. There we go. Alrighty, now with the new airbox in, let's do a before and after test. Alrighty, not too bad. Adds a little bit of sound. I did notice the revs were a little bit more responsive. Very, very minuscule. Literally could just be placebo. But if you noticed, I mentioned with the filter, the end of it, which is, I guess if you want to call it like the fitting end, had a different shape than what I had seen on the pictures. Now, FCP Euro says that it's supposed to be from Mahle, if you do Mahle, LX1035. I confirmed that the order I put in was for LX1035. It's obviously the part number here. For some reason, it's a different shape at the end. I unfortunately got rid of the old one because it was extremely dusty and about 5 years old. So I just ordered another one. It was like 25 bucks. I'll wait to get that one and then put it back in. I wasn't a fan of how it sat. It looked like it was going to be wobbling around a lot. So in any case, just be on the lookout for that. Rather than taking it out now, let's wait and do the exhaust. That way we can just see how everything sounds together. So with that, let's move to the rear. Alrighty, folks, so you actually joined me a few days later. I think this is about a week after I finished putting on the exhaust for the 1 Series. Funny story, it took forever to get it on. The coupler did not actually fit. I think I was a couple millimeters short, so it took a long time to do some trial and error. Basically heating and cooling the adapter as well as the pipes, the actual exhausts, so cooling them down while putting the little adapter in the oven. Needless to say, the exhaust is on, and after a week, my girlfriend absolutely loves it. And with that, let's get some exhaust clips and take it out for a drive. So you joined me about a month after all the installs were done. We've got O2 sensors, suspension, spacers, intake, and the exhaust all installed. The car is aligned, no codes. This car is just an absolute dream, and it's been so much fun to drive this car. My girlfriend absolutely loves it. Could not be a better daily commute, track weapon, if you will. And with the addition of the spacers, we ended up only keeping the rears because on the front, the steering feel got a little too heavy. In addition to the spacers in the rear, it gives the fitment a fantastic look. Not too low. Again, it's stock Bilstein B4s. The fitment is just great. It's dialed in where we need it to be. Again, you're on 17, so tons of tire. The ride quality is phenomenal. And the fact that we were missing out on this for the first 3-4-ish years of its life is pretty crazy to think about, because this car has been so much fun up until that point. And so now that the suspension is in a better place, it just makes the experience better. And so now I'm at a crossroads of what do we do from here? This car is a daily driver. It's my girlfriend's car. The exhaust and intake are the first modifications to this vehicle. And I can't really do much more outside of that, because otherwise you start to sacrifice a little bit of reliability and of course daily drivability. Outside of that, the E82 is such a great example of the BMW philosophy. Rear-wheel drive, 6-cylinder up front, 50-50 weight distribution, naturally aspirated. I mean, you can't ask for more. And so now, letting the car warm up, let's put it in sport and let's give it a little bit of gas. Yeah. The car loves to sing after 4,000 RPMs. It's crazy how that 6-cylinder sounds. It's such an intoxicating sound that you just don't get. And I just can't see why BMW had to lose that. I know the B58 is great and all, but that turbo really kills that sound. Some people like that sound, and I'm definitely in that camp of it can sound good. But take, for example, the S55 and the S58s. They just have such a hard time making them sound good. For other reasons, with the mid-pipe length, BMW had it right. Naturally aspirated 6-cylinder, just perfectly balanced. Can't ask for anything better. Hydraulic steering's giving me everything I need to know about the front. And the suspension, for being a stock setup, is just so well set up. No drama, no fuss. No oversteer. I'm not pushing the car to its limit, but going for a spirited drive, it gives you a lot of confidence, and you don't really feel like you're going to be losing grip. You don't feel like you're going to be sliding all over the place. So if you really want to learn how to drive properly and understand the chassis limits of your vehicle, your driver limits, this is the car to do it in. If you don't want an E46 because you're worried about cooling system to blow up on you, or you just want something slightly more modern and not an E90 3035 that the turbos are going to go out on you, E82. It is truly an embodiment of the perfection that BMW had with the E30 and the entire 3 Series lineup until they divided it into the 4 Series and 3 Series. I love this car, and the prices really don't reflect that appreciation just yet. They are starting to creep up a little bit. You can find some very good examples of a 128 in the $10,000 range. That's what we got this for back in 2021, but it did have higher miles at the time. We had about 94,000. Now you can find some pretty low mileage examples for around $10,000. Right now for sale, I saw one, I think in North Carolina, a 135, 2012, 60,000 miles for $15,000. So depending on if you want a turbo 6-cylinder with a dual clutch, naturally aspirated 6-cylinder with a torque converted automatic, manual for either of those, you have a lot of options. Convertible, coupe, no matter what flavor you pick of this car, you're gonna have a great time. And with that, let's get back to the garage. Well, that about wraps it up. Like I mentioned, E82 and the E90 platforms have been very well explored since their inception back in the late 2000s. And with that, I just don't feel like there's much more to be doing on this car. Maintenance-wise, it's perfect. I mean, I've done everything that needs to be done. You might see it come along here and there if we decide to do another mod or some maintenance needs to be done, but you guys let me know. Is there something you feel like needs to be explored, something that maybe I missed? In any case, if you want to learn more about this car and a review I did a few years ago, you can check out that video here. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching Euro Fever Garage, and until next time, I'm your host Donovan. Thanks for watching.